Stellaris, Intel, Espionage, Fog of War, it's all coming, says Dev Diary 194. Welcome, friends. Let's see what we have in this one. It looks like a great treat for Christmas. Fog of War, there's Intel categories, and there's how the Intel is made, the flaws it will have, and how it is influenced. So what's the background? Now, first you change the game to a game with incomplete information. It's more likely to life. If you have a game with complete information, it's more likely to a board game, to chess. And so this feels more chaotic, more lifelike, and more, and that is what they wanted to do, mysterious and unknown. We want the experience of learning more about alien empires to be an equally important and fun aspect of exploration. So they have added the Fog of War. You'll no longer see all of the systems and borders occupied by the empire you've recently contacted, but it will now instead be tied to how much intel you have. This really makes alien empires feel way more mysterious. So you can see here there's a little bit of shade. There's more complete information, but there's a lot of darkness in the galaxy, which we will later see. The information on the empire to the galactic southeast in this example is very limited. We can see their home world and the borders explored by our science ship, but nothing more. And here we have a typical galaxy. The galaxy as seen from the yellow empire of the top right. There are a bunch of empires that we know very little about, and there are still more that are undiscovered, as you can see here. Some of them you only know the names and roughly maybe their capital planet. Others you have nearly complete information, others you have partly information. And of course that will come in layers. And it is influenced by, among other things, Intel. Like mentioned above, the primary objective is to make alien empires feel more mysterious and unknown. Yeah, they can be more mysterious and unknown then. They wanted to hide information, allow us to learn more about other empires as we gain more intel on them. The goal is to make the Intel game a part of the exploration aspect of Stellaris. And there's a lot you can do with the Intel game. You could, for example, add bonuses if you have a very high intel. Vice versa, you could add minus percentages to some fights if you have a very low intel. I mean, if you're confronted with unknown ships, there needs to be some kind of morale thing going. But we'll see how that works. As you can see here, there is the Zadi Vestige. That is a fallen empire, and everything about them is unknown. We have only very low intel on them. That is that new thing that is pink. An alien empire recently established communications with us. Friends? Yeah, not really, right? Let's take a look at how they've designed the Intel game to work. So you have Intel. That is a value between 0 and 100. So 100 would be probably 100% visible. You have a current Intel value and you have a target Intel value up to which it can grow. So it's a continuous process, but maybe it can be changed by events. So there's a continuous growth to it, and there's a floor you can reach. You usually have an Intel floor, which is the lowest value it can be. It might be 0, but it is depending on a couple of factors such as diplomatic pacts, for example research agreements, commercial pacts, etc. Trust, something new, redacted. Maybe an innate bonus to you, maybe, you don't know. Depending on things like diplomatic pacts, trust, or other things, the Intel will grow over time. It will not only grow, and we'll come to that soon. There's Intel categories, so we have information split between different Intel categories such as government, military, diplomatic, economic, and technology. And the question is, if they have specifically technology in that, and maybe it's not only the information how high the technology is, maybe you can start stealing some technologies or getting some bonuses from technologies like you can get from only diplomacy at the moment. Categories can have different Intel levels as well, ranging from none to full. The Intel categories and their levels are what determines what information you have access to. For example, low government Intel, for example Intel 10, would reveal basic things like empire name, authority, ethics, capital, location. Low military Intel, for example 40, would reveal star bases, relative military power. Medium government intel, for example 40, would reveal civics and origin. So that's already relatively high, would be the civics and origin. So that adds a lot to it, if you know them or not. diplomacy is not that easy anymore if you don't know the civics of an empire. You don't know who you could trust to be your friends over a long time from the moment you meet them, but only a little bit later. Medium diplomacy intel, for example Intel 50, would reveal the opinion breakdown and let us see which diplomatic pacts they have with other empires. So you can now have secret pacts. The other empires can also have secret pacts. You might not know what they are in. You might attack a foe that they have a defensive pact with, and then you'd be at war with them. It adds a whole new level to diplomacy as well, and makes it very satisfying to know a lot. And maybe now if you're for example someone who has no diplomacy, like maybe a Purifier Empire or a Ravenous Hive, you might not even know who you're fighting against. It's just everyone's the same alien trash that you want to beat. If you're not getting intel from them, then it could be like that. A faceless enemy, and that's absolutely the feeling you would have if you were a Ravenous Hive. Intel reports also allow you to gain more information in a certain category on a timed basis. It would be, for example, possible to gain an Intel report which lasts for 720 days and gives you a high level of military intel. That was the events I was talking about. Whereas otherwise high military intel might require you to have 80 intel on the Empire, because military is always a little bit more hidden. And then there's the concept of stale intel. And that's a very interesting concept, I think. It is said that knowledge is power and intel is a form of knowledge. Power usually fades and so does intel. It's possible to lose access to information that was previously accessible. In some cases, this information will now be displayed as stale. The respective empire here is belligerent, and in that case we would have a stale knowledge of them being pathetic in fleet power, equivalent in technology, and pathetic in trade power. But that might be not true anymore. They might be overwhelming now. The last information you had about the Empire was that they were far weaker than you in many accounts, but perhaps they've strengthened their fleets by now. Stale intel can also mean that you may no longer see if the borders for an empire change or not. So you might also have outdated maps. So that can also influence the direction where you want to expand. It can influence just about anything. So it's a very, very important thing that will be added to the game. It will change the game completely. And I'm really interested in seeing if we will have science officers for that, because it's also, I think, connected to the science ships. For example, they see the borders. Or if there would be another kind of advisor, or if there would be no advisor regarding the intel mechanic chain. And I'm really looking forward to that. So what do you think of this change? The change of intel and fog of war. What is your favorite thing about this dev diary? For me, it's definitely just the intel and the mechanics. It's just changes diplomacy so much that I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for watching and happy gaming to you. Have a great time until next time and happy gaming. This is Immanuel Can signing out. See you soon and happy gaming.